everyone, it's Fran from Village Dry Goods again. This is week number 7 with our summer sew-along. So this week's block of the week is going to be this fun little one, and I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to put together one of these units on this. So let's go on over and get busy. All right, so this week's block is kind of a spin on an Ohio star block. I'm going to begin and show you how to use your pieces of fabric without using the cat's cradle ruler, and then we'll show you that method as well. So I'm actually going to be showing you 2 different methods to do this block. So the first thing you're going to do is you have a cream 3.5 inch square. You're going to cut it twice diagonally. And then so that will give you 4 pieces. Then you have 4 little squares. You'll cut each of those once diagonally, so you'll have 8 little triangles. You have 4 1.5 inch pieces of your tan. You have 2 pieces of your tan. You're going to cut each of those one time diagonally. You will have a 3.5 piece. You will cut that twice diagonally. Then you have 2 of black. You'll cut each of those twice to give you 4 triangles and 1 2.5 inch square. So now I'm going to show you how you're going to sew all of these fun pieces into your 6.5 inch block. Okay, first thing you're going to do is you're going to take your little tan 1.5 inch squares and your 2 triangles, and you're going to sew these on the sides. Now how I did this, and this is a fun little tip, if you sew these from the flat end going into your machine, you don't have to then deal with this tail here. So I would sew that side on first, press it to your triangle, bring your other piece over, again sew that from your flat side, sew that right into your machine, press that out. You could trim this little dog ear off there after you're done sewing that on the first go round. Then you're going to have this all pressed and it will look like this. Then you're going to take one of your triangles from your 3.5 inch tan squares and you are going to sew that onto the bottom. When you have that all sewn on, look how lovely. You will have 4 units that look like this. This unit is called a cat's cradle. All right, now I promised you I would show you 2 methods to sew the fun cat's cradle units together. This is such a very fun ruler, and it will make blocks that finish 1.5 all the way up to 4 inches. They do have a larger one than this as well. It's Creative Grid's Cat's Cradle Ruler, and it is so fun to use. So I'm going to tell you, all of their measurements for cutting everything out are right on the ruler. They do come with a set of instructions as well that have how we're going to put it together. So from your pieces, from your tan, you will be cutting 4 1 3/4 inch squares. You will be cutting 4 1 3/4 by 2 3/4 rectangles, 2 3x4 rectangles. And now let's start putting this together. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take these little rectangles here and we are going to sew those onto our squares onto our rectangles. Doesn't matter which end you put these on right now because we can rotate those. They're going to look the same. So we're going to take all of our little squares, sew them onto our rectangles. When we do that, we end up with 4 little pieces that look like this. When you have those 4 pieces, press those to the rectangle side. Then you're going to lay these pieces together, opposite ends together, just like so. Now, when you sew this, and I'd like to take credit for this, however, it's on your pattern written as a special tip. Sew this with your rectangle going into the machine. So you would be sewing it just like this. When you have that sewn, you're going to take that piece and you're going to snip in between your seam. So about halfway in between that seam, and don't get too picky on it. If it's not exactly halfway, it's okay. Just give it a snip to the seam. What that does is that helps you to press it now towards your rectangles. Now I've got that finished, and I've got 2 of those units. And I should tell you, with each of these, you're going to get 2 of your cat's cradles. So you need to do 2 sets of these. So there's our first one. Now we have another one that we have sewn together. You are going to take your cat's cradle ruler, and you're going to draw your seam line. If you see here on your ruler, it says place on seam line. So we're going to take that and we're going to lay it right here on our seam, just like so. Then I'm going to take my mechanical pencil and I'm going to draw my line. Now that is your sewing line. Don't get crazy and cut that. That's our sewing line, okay? And here's a clue. It even tells me mark sewing line. Okay, so I'm going to mark it on this side. I'm going to turn it around and I'm going to line that up again, and I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side. Now I'm going to take this over to my machine and I'm going to stitch and stitch. Then I am going to take that piece and I am going to cut it apart right in the center. Now you can eyeball it if you would like, or you can use your ruler, lay it on there, and do a good 1/4 inch seam. It's in your seam allowance, so if you want to eyeball, you can. Just make sure you're being pretty even with that. Then, once I have done that, I am going to press this and pretend that this is your right tan. So sorry, ran out of the right color, and at 5 this morning, I really didn't want to come down and get a new piece. So I'm pressing this now out towards my tan. Look at how slick that is. Now we're going to take all 4 of our pieces that we've just made, and we are going to trim those using our ruler. Now I'm going to use this end of my ruler. This is going to finish, remember we're doing 2.5 inch units. So we're going to take this, we're going to line this up. Here is my 2.5 inches right up here. Look at this. Here's my diagonal line. So, I'm sorry, back it up. This has to be a 2 inch. On the Creative Grids rulers, the numbers that are on here are your finished size, not your unfinished. So we're going to come back into the 2 inch mark and we are going to trim. I have my diagonal line going across and I have my square right here inside my 2 inch. I will trim this side and this side, rotate this around, and I'm going to again put that 2 inch right on here, and this side is already marked on here. So I've already got that up into my area that I need it, and I'm going to trim the opposite 2 sides. Then I will have my perfect 2.5 inch cat's cradle unit. We'll do that 4 times. We're going to trim that 4 times on there, and then we've got our perfect units. If you would like this ruler, here's a little tip. We're going to use the same ruler again next month on our block. Now we're going to do our 1/4 square triangles. We're going to take our black triangles that we've cut, and we're going to take our tan triangles that we have cut, and we're going to use our cream that we have cut into the quarters. Now when you stitch these together, here's a little tip. So if you will always stitch these with your black piece on the top, your placement will be perfect. Okay, so I've got my black piece. I'm going to put that on top of my cream, flat side once again, stitch right into my machine. And then I've got that piece all stitched up. It's going to look like this when I open it up. Then I'm going to take my cream or my tan and my black, and again I'm going to do the very same thing with my black once again on the top. I'm going to run that in flat edges into my sewing machine, and when I have that one done, it looks like this. I did press all of those seams open. Neat little tool to press things open are these little strip sticks. So what you do on this, here's your seam, I've pressed it, I've set my stitches all nice down in. Then I'm going to come over to my strip stick, I'm going to take my seam, I'm going to open it up and I'm going to press it right on that little strip stick. So when I open this up, you don't have a shadow on there from your lines showing through. So now I have all of my little half square triangles sewn together. And when I put them together, they're going to look like this. So here's a block all sewn together. Again, I am going to use our little precision trimmer ruler to trim this. Now we get to use even more lines. So this block needs to be trimmed to 2.5 inches. So I am going to come over here and I am going to find 1.25 inches right here in the middle of my ruler. See my diagonal lines again? My little starburst is going to go straight in the middle of my block. And I know that this is black and it's really hard to see. I'll move those lines over just a skosh so you can see where those lines are. I'm going to put my little starburst right into the center of my block, and I'm going to trim 2 sides. I'm going to rotate my block around, lay my ruler back on. Again, now I will have had, if this was trimmed on the 2 sides, I would have a perfectly straight side both there. So I would line that right up on the 2.5. Pay attention that my starburst is in the center, and now I am going to trim the other 2 sides. You will be making 4 of these fun little units. When it's all trimmed up pretty and nice, it looks like this. So now I have 4 of those little units, and we're going to sew this all together. So I am going to have, in our corners will be our cat's cradles. And on our sides, we get to have our quarter square triangles, or the part that makes up our Ohio star. Now, watch where your placement goes. You want your tan always to be in the center. Pretend that one is trimmed, nice and neat. Okay, so it's going to go like this. Then down here, I am going to have this one that is down here. And we'll have our 4th one here. Then smack dab in the middle will come our black 2.5 inch square. So when this is all finished, this unit is going to measure 6.5 inches unfinished. All of your little units here, your quarter square triangles and your cat's cradle, those all will measure 2.5 inches unfinished. Then go back to the original YouTube to make your outside flying geese and sew those 4 together. Sew 2 onto the sides. Sew your 3.5 inch squares onto the ends of your other 2. Sew those on the top and the bottom. And there is our Ohio star block. Now, if you look on the back side of our block, you can see how I have pressed all of our seams. I press a lot of the seams open. So on a couple of these, I got a little crazy and pressed these guys open. Don't do that. Leave these all pressed towards the cream triangles. So don't pay any attention to that crazy pressing. Press these seams open, and these seams all open.